Hello and thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Mark Otabo. Federal government establishes National Guards to secure forests as Senate set up committee for National Security Summit. Reps launch probe into JAM's 2025 UTME mass failures. And later on the show, Peter Obi proposes death sentence for corrupt leaders in Nigeria. All the details in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu's directive to the National Security Advisor to establish forest guards across the country has been welcomed by the Senate as part of measures to contain growing insecurity. The Nigerian Forest Security Services Establishment Bill 2025 passed by the Senate aligns with Mr. President's vision on the proposition of forest guards. The planned summit is expected to bring together key stakeholders in the nation's security architecture to develop a coordinated and sustainable approach to tackling insecurity across the country. Now, joining me for this conversation is Bernard Onega, is a lawyer and former NBA National Human Rights Committee Secretary, right here in the studio with me. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the show today.
The pleasure is mine.
Fantastic. All right, of course, I still have Ibrahim Garba, communications consultant, and he will be talking to us from our Abuja studio. Ibrahim Garba, it's good to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you for having me again, Mr. Mark.
Fantastic. Now, I'll begin with you quickly, Mr. Ibrahim. Now, Mr. President's idea of forest guards has been hailed as a fantastic idea to checkmate some of the nefarious activities of insurgents. Now, how far will this go to help contain this menace?
Well, Mark, you know, it's long overdue for such to take place. I thank God. And we're happy today that the bill is before Mr. President. And you know that the military architecture we have today is overstretched. And that is why it's not possible for us to be able to combat this insurgency for so many years now. We have porous borders, and we have a situation now that the farmers cannot go back to their farmlands. So the cases of insecurity continue to spiral on a daily basis. And you know, of recent, the one that broke out around, Maiduguri area, the northeast areas and all those areas, this is as a result of the fact that our borders are not properly manned. So, given this, the forest, rather involving the forest guards now, will help us to maintain some of these border areas because they are trained to do so, and they know some of these areas around the northeast, northwest, north central, even as far as the southern part of this country. And like you rightly pointed out, if we don't do that at this time or this time around, it's going to be very difficult for us to contain the insurgency. The only thing I've advised is that, one, they should be adequately funded, they should be given, they should be given effective training, and liaise with the community so that they can get adequate information. If we can put these things in place, I think in the next 6 months, we're able to curb this menace, which has dealt a very big blow on our economy, Mark. All
right, Barrister, quickly, how do you think these forest guards would complement the security architecture that we already have?
If you ask Mr. Garba, who is a security expert, he will tell you that policing is local. And I think that the idea is commendable because these are young men and women, I want to believe, that understand the terrain.
Okay.
And so you have a policeman from Sokoto or Kebbi that is posted to the forest in Cross River. He doesn't understand the terrain. So that kind of policing is not effective. And that is the concerns we have expressed over the years, that our policing architecture is not sufficient to address local demands. So I want to believe that it will go a long way. I want to also see a coordinated effort between the IGP, the Chief of Army Staff, the DSS, of course, which is primarily for intelligence gathering, So I want to believe that if there's an attack, that the local vigilante or the forest guards are able to show the DSS officials, the military officials, and the police officials, who I want to believe will be better armed than they are, in the forest areas and the terrain and how to go about it, So it has to do with a lot of coordination at the center. And I'm hopeful that the National Security Advisor would be able to undertake that responsibility of effective coordination so that we don't just create another problem, because that's exactly what the fears are. The concerns out there are legitimate. I've heard you say that it is being welcomed, but some persons are expressing genuine and legitimate concerns. Funding. We already have a policing system right now that's been underfunded. Training. How do we ensure that they do not become a menace? You train them, you empower them. How do we ensure that they do not turn the guns against the very people they are expected to protect? So those are the fundamental issues. It is not about making laws. Beautiful law. I've often said that the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and people always forget that aspect because it relates to governance, and maybe that's also because a lot of politics goes on in our nation. Right. For me, it's commendable, and the NSA will be watching. I would be expecting that we see a lot of effective coordination, I mean to say, from his office, and I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful that we would achieve milestones from the decision of Mr. President in this regard.
All right. Commendable, right?
Commendable, absolutely. Fantastic.
Commendable. Mr. Garba, very quickly, I understand that, the barrister here just highlighted the issues of welfare and how we can actually fund these forest guards. But let's come back to the real conversation right here. Now, we have army personnel who have gone for training, with years on ending, with experience on the battlefield. Are you telling us that with the kind of money we budget into our military architecture, we're still not able to actually stamp out insecurity to the barest minimum? Why do we always have to face these problems and it keeps recurring? Like we have the Nigerian Navy, we have the Nigerian Army, we have the Nigerian Air Force, with all the combat jets we have and all the sophisticated weapons we have, the armor tanks and all that. We can't stamp out local terrorists who come to terrorize our country and put us under a chokehold?
You see, Mark, you have rightly said it now. They are meant for, special purposes. If we have maybe conflict outside this country, we have the military personnel that we can deploy to such. We have done so in Liberia and some other places. But we're looking at a local issue here, which is around us. You don't necessarily need to deploy military to these places because, like my other person say here, these are rooted within the community. So it's very easy to identify them by using the local vigilantes. The money spent in training these military personnel is a waste if you deploy them to areas where they are not familiar with. Most times, the military personnel will want to deploy, the gunships and all that, to combat, to fight these terrorists and all that. But again, I see it as overspending and taking them to areas that is not within their jurisdiction. All we need now is to train these young people, the forest guard, which I've seen some of them operating somewhere, and at the same time, fund them, give them a directorate, empower them, give them adequate training. I tell you, within 6 months, you'll never hear of any case of insecurity because they know the forest, they know the areas. It has happened in Zamfara, and Katsina State has taken charge. So in some places like Kano and Kaduna, these elements, they are running away because they deploy local vigilantes. And that is why I would say the money spent in buying all these drones should be used to create and empower these forest guards.
Okay.
That's the way to go now. And I like what Mr. President has done now. He has vetoed it. And I believe if it's enforced, honestly, we will do a lot by curbing this insecurity with these forest areas.
All right, before we run off from this topic, Mr. Bernard, quickly, let's be frank and realistic. Are you sure the politics that is, holding sway with the way they are handling the security challenges in the country will not trickle down to the forest guards as well and hold them to ransom too?
Very important concern. However, we need to keep trying.
Okay.
The president means well, and I'm hopeful that those who assigned this responsibility and role will be able to protect us. That's his primary responsibility, to protect lives and properties. So I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
I'm very optimistic.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go on a quick break, and of course, Newsweek returns in a moment. Stay with us.